Hello, I'm Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and welcome to my blog, where it's both my pleasure as well as my mission to highlight my creative journey so that way you get some inspiration, some takeaway, all in the hopes that yours can be easier than mine, at least in some ways. Now, before I fully dive into things, I would like to take the opportunity to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. That way you get all the various lessons and episodes that I put out right when I put them out. Thank you if you just did, and thank you if you already were. It truly does mean a lot to me, as I hope it does to you. So, this past week, we're really ramping up to the production of my second feature film. We're only weeks away. All right, today, the time of this recording is October 18th, and we begin filming November 4th. Right? So not that many days left. We're in the final prep. And, as part of that, just from one standpoint, is I'm trying to close out all the various projects that I have for work and other people, right? So that way, when I go, we're going to go to Colombia to film this, Colombia the country. And so that way, while I'm there, everything's taken care of and handled. And so not only am I preparing for the movie, but I'm preparing essentially getting weeks ahead of stuff so that way, things are good in my absence, right? Sometimes that's one of the things I think we just need to be. I don't think a lot of us do a good enough job of setting up people for success. Whenever I leave, I try to make it as easy as possible on whoever is there, right? And also to communicate with people. For example, there's someone's hosting reel that I'm working on, and I'm making sure to communicate with this person that, hey, I will have X, Y, and Z delivered by this date, and by this date, we really need to kind of close it out, because if we don't hit that deadline, I will no longer be available to you until basically end of November. And so, how they kind of go from there, that's up to them. Now, obviously, the thing about that is you have to give them enough notice. Can't be just like, hey, tomorrow I need X, Y, and Z, and if you don't deliver, then boom, it's over. So there's that side of it. You have to be proactive about these things, and I think in that sense, and I'm not saying I'm the best at it either, but I think just more of a conscious effort to do that. And part of that is just so many of us are juggling so many different balls all at the same time that can be sort of difficult to do, because you're just trying to get caught up with your everyday stuff, but then trying to get ahead, that's very difficult. But again, if nothing else, I think just communicating that up front as much as possible, I think is really important, and I don't think we discuss enough, about that stuff. The other thing, so regarding my friend's reel, I'm ultimately doing it as a favor. This is someone who I collaborate with on stuff, numerous times, and who I have a lot of respect for. And so in that sense, this is someone who's done a lot of favors for me. And so this is my way of repaying that in a sense. Now, of course, favors, you have the ability to say no. At the end of the day, any relationship that you're in that is a true friendship shouldn't be a value exchange, right? That's not what I'm saying. But in my heart of hearts, I'm like, this person works really hard for me, and I know that me editing this reel is a piece of cake for me, right? I can do it in my sleep. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. And for me, one of the things I was kind of reflecting on is I think too many of us sometimes draw the line in the sand of like, okay, well, A, how does it benefit me? And if I'm not getting paid for it, then I'm not going to do it, right? And I think, to me, that's a wrong approach because, again, this is someone who does collaborate with me and, we do great stuff together. But in that same sense, whenever I've called the person, they've always been there for me and vice versa. And in this case, the person took me up on like what I offered to a lot of my close friends of like, hey, if you ever need something, call me up. And the person did. And so I said yes. Now, I don't do that for everybody because there are people that, in my gut aren't A, deserving, and B, would just, it's like they're just a take. They're not a give person at all. And so, I think part of it is you have to know of who the right people are. Now, interestingly enough, so I'm working on the reel for this person. And then there's another thing that, a while ago I got involved in and I kind of had some hesitation on. Not because it wasn't a legitimate thing or anything. It was like, okay, it's going to be a lot of work on me, potentially. It's just another thing on my plate sort of thing. But whatever that voice in my head, whatever it was, I shut it out because I knew, it's kind of like analogous to the idea that when you're a kid, your mom gets you out of bed, something like that, and it's like, okay, you don't necessarily want to get out of bed, but it's actually good for you. So I essentially had to like be my own parent and be like, no, you're just complaining, and no matter the work, good thing, this is what you should be doing. And even though you're not getting quote paid, like it's going to lead to great things and it's going to teach you something and so forth. So I was like, okay. And, interestingly enough, this thing came back like tenfold. There was an opportunity that came my way last week that was like a huge opportunity because of this thing. And that was really exciting and unexpected, right? And so when you just have a good spirit about you and, are true to your word and your actions match your words, then good things come. Now, is it going to be A plus B equals C? No, it's A plus B equals gazillion, right? Like it's just something it's something completely random. You can't necessarily predict it, but in hindsight, once you look at it with 20/20, vision, then you could see like, oh, okay, I see how this aligned itself, but you can't predict it. And I think too many people prevent themselves from certain opportunities because they're myopic. How does this benefit me? If it doesn't benefit me right away, right here, right now, I'm not doing it. And I don't get that. For me, my career, I look at it, is going to be the culmination of decades. And I am equally impressed by what my friends do very sincerely, as, at least they say to me. And that's awesome because we can both appreciate and respect each other's work. And so why wouldn't we help each other? And, in this result-driven society, and certainly with social media, that pressure is even more on. It's like, if you got to like output and show. A lot of times it's the stuff that people don't see. And I just wish people wouldn't be so myopic. Or who knows, maybe I'm myopic in how I view certain people or, just in general, and I'm not seeing everything. But based on the way people describe certain things to me or talk about X, Y, and Z, or as I observe it, I think it does become easier to tell of, who truly appreciates you and will be part of your inner circle, and even if nothing else, like even if they provide nothing else, just the fact that they appreciate you on a sincere level is amazing. And you need that in your life. So I think about that, I really do. And I encourage you to think about the people in your life, what they mean on a deeper level, besides just on a utilitarian level, right? And again, the irony when you do that, like a lot, I don't know, maybe for me in the past like month, let's say, I've really been seeing like the paradox or the oxymorons of life, because it's like the less you think of people as just these utilities for your own benefit, then ironically, the more they will be able to benefit you. It's very interesting that way. Going back to the hosting reel, it's kind of interesting to me because, I didn't have a lot of time to necessarily do it, but I allocated, hours on one day, hours on another day. And it's just kind of funny how when you just roll up your sleeves, things really come together. And I think it's also representative of like a next phase of evolution as an artist. When you just have the ability to churn out great work in spite of whatever else may be going on and so forth. Because, it's not like I didn't care, but it was just much more instinctual of, okay, let's see the footage. All right, cool. Boom, boom, boom. It just, there's a speed at which I was able to put this together where it just felt so natural and effortless and without thought. Whereas before, I'd be like and in a weird way, like I'd be all excited, right? And be like, okay, so we're going to do this, we're going to do that, this and that. And it's not to say that I wasn't excited to do it. But I guess just the anxious excitement, right? Like I can just appreciate the moment and do what needs to be done versus just psyching myself out. I can kind of equate it to, not that I've ever experienced this, but imagine like a player, the butterflies he feels in his stomach, or she feels, before the final of a World Cup. Right? That's, billions of people watching you on TV. And that's a lot of pressure. And, it's not to say that you can't perform optimally in spite of those butterflies. But what if you just didn't need to feel those butterflies and just were like, hey, at the end of the day, it's a soccer game. And I love soccer, so I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to give it my all in that moment, but I'm not going to, I don't need to inflate it more than it needs to be. And that's when magic happens. And that's why I talk about all the mastering mental fortitude and so forth. Because when you can get into that sort of state, that's when, creativity really starts to shine for you. I know it does for me. And speaking of like rolling up your sleeves, I had a meeting with my production team, and we went over stuff about the schedule and all the various details. And there were some couple of curveballs that came my way. And that meant we had to reshift the schedule because of it. And yeah, it's a gut punch. It sucks in that moment. It's made worse by the idea that some of this stuff could have been avoided. Like, in theory, I could have been notified at least on some of this stuff like a month ago. I wasn't. And so it's like, okay, it is what it is. And And rather than like build it up in my head of like, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to solve this? It was just much more easier to actually sit down in front of the computer and be like, okay, let's work this out. And within an hour and a half to 2 hours, I reconfigured the schedule. And what came out of it actually worked to our advantage because it made the days a lot more even than they were before. And giving us, part of that was giving us more rest on each of the days. So it became a lot more consistent. And not that I was like looking for that or planning for that, it was just a natural byproduct. And that's exciting because, rather than whatever problem comes your way in life, right? But, artistically, we'll just continue in that way. Rather, the more you fight against it, you're not going to win. It's there, right? As Byron Katie would say, you're just, the more you argue with reality, the more you suffer. So it's like, okay, I don't need to argue with reality. This is what's handed to me. So let's figure this out. And when you do that, you can start, it all just kind of starts to then work in your favor. It's almost like there's the Alchemist, a very famous book. And in the Alchemist, one of the things that they say is when it's your, I forget the term, it's your personal, I'll call it the personal agenda, even though I don't think that's what it is. But whatever like your purpose essentially is, when you're in alignment with that, the whole world conspires to help you. And in a way, even these things that might seem like obstacles and annoyances are actually helping me, in this process. And that, so why fight against that? Then, of course, not to spoil the story, but there is a part like towards the end of any quest, it becomes the hardest, and that's because the universe needs to really put you to the test of like, have you learned X, Y, and Z lesson? So I'm sure a portion of that is coming my way at what in my mind would seem like an inopportune time, but we'll handle it when it comes because I'll know I have the skills to do so. By the way, if you hear the pitter-patter, that is my dog walking around, just guarding me and making sure I have a good podcast episode. So there was that, right? The rescheduling of things. The other thing that was kind of a slight curveball, but another good thing, was we were working on these photos for high school. So in the movie, there's people, the characters are around like 35, but we wanted to show from a time that they were in high school. And so for like months, we've been employing this one method, and we were getting a result out of it, but it wasn't as good as it could have been. And then Jonathan called me up and he said, hey, I think, why don't we try it this way? So basically calling an audible on 4th and 10 if you know football, right? Basically, just not opportune, right? But it's like, okay, I wish we had thought of this sooner, but we thought of it in advance of needing it. And, everyone involved was like, okay, let's do this. And we employed the technique. We had a great time doing it, and now we're finalizing the results between me and Jonathan, and they look great. So I'm glad yes, you could say like we wasted a couple of months on the other thing, but ultimately we got to where we needed to, and who's to say like without that we wouldn't have gotten to this place. Sometimes it is about trial and error and trying this and be like, ooh, that doesn't quite work. What if we did this? Oh, that does work. Okay, cool. Or then be like, okay, well, what if we did part of this with this and part of this with that and create the final result? You got to try stuff. That's what creativity is all about. And the other thing, we had our final rehearsal, which ironically was as the same day as it was a month in advance of when we would have wrapped the movie. So I said, I didn't plan it this way, but imagine yourselves like a month from now, we'll have wrapped the movie. That's exciting. So we had a great rehearsal, and I think there's a good level of excitement. It's really, really, really feeling real. And we're going to have an awesome time and get an awesome movie. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with things. Now, as far as me and the various content that I put out, I'm probably going to go on break from like official lessons. I might do like random ideas that hit. I might just do like a spur of the moment TikTok style video or something like that. But after this week, I'm going to kind of close up shop and really focus on the movie. So there's not going to be new content coming out till probably end of November, maybe December. But that's okay, because there's literally hundreds of episodes for you to browse through. How-tos. There's how to master mental fortitude. A lot of things you can imagine. You can check out some of my actual projects, or you can check out the various film and book and podcast recommendations that I put out. So there's lots of stuff that's there in my absence for you. So fear not. It's all there for you. And available as podcasts on all major podcasting platforms. So Apple, Google, Spotify, so forth. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. Thank you for taking the time to tune in and being a part of my journey in the way that you have. As always, if there's any questions or thoughts of your own, it could be about anything that I talked about. It could be stuff that I didn't cover. By all means, comment away or hit me up on social media at Svitek, and would love to chat with you. But once we get into kind of towards November, and certainly the first couple weeks of November, if I'm not responding actively as I normally do, you'll know why. It's because I'm filming a movie. Thank you. I appreciate you. I hope to see you next time.